podcast in three,
Okay.
two,
3,
one.
2.
Inspiration Nation, hello. Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast with both Ryan Boniface and Jose Noya. How are we doing, guys?
Yeah,
Very
good.
well, thank you.
I thought
Glad that you've managed to turn up this week.
Yeah, I thought I'd give it a go once in a while, see what it's like.
I've just had a question.
Oh, what's the question? Is this a real question, Jose, or someone faking you out?
Yeah, it is a question. What are your pronouns? Lee and Ryan, what are your pronouns?
I am a he and a him. And
Same.
Lee.
Yeah, same. Full house. He, him. That's what we are. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Keep the questions coming. Appreciate it. We will take them on board and I'll ask the guys.
Speaking of full house, we have a full house TikTok today. Just stick Jose Noya, Inspirational into your Google machine. One of those first links that come up will be the TikTok. Give them a follow. You'll be notified when we're going live and you can join in as well. And check out the YouTube. We were just referencing before for the people on TikTok. Jose starting a new little series of short daily snippet videos, so give them a check out as well. Right, Jose, I think it's your subject today, isn't it?
Silence fills the room.
Is it not? Is it me as I've not been here for the last gajillion weeks?
Hang on, let me get my batting thing and bat this over to someone else in the room, which is definitely not Ryan. So there's only one person left.
Is it me?
I think.
Is it me?
Do you think?
I'm going to go into my. Will it show up? It doesn't really show up, does it? There we go. My book of Churchill quotes. All will be well. Good advice from Winston Churchill. And I had this page saved. So 1948, these wise words were said. It is easier to break crockery than to mend it. Before I share my thoughts and why that jumped out to me, what are your thoughts on that particular quotation?
You got anything, Ryan?
Nothing really springs out. I'm sure the pair of you will give me some good motivation on it.
Break crockery. So is that saying it's easier to break things than to mend them? I'm just trying to think about that. I think it's easier to destroy things.
Yeah, that's it. It's easier to tear things down and be critical, destroy them.
Let's just imagine.
Build.
Right, so I'm just going to take this as a metaphor. I don't know if this is what you're going to go with it, Lee, but my thought on this, say a friendship, maybe, it's easy to break a friendship by being horrible and doing that, but it's hard to mend it because the trust goes down and that sort of thing happens because it's hard to mend, right? If you've been a bit of a dick or something.
Well, language flag.
But it's a bit easier. It's harder to mend, isn't it? No, it's easy to break, but hard to mend it because you then got to try and build that back up, right? So, yeah, you could break friendships quite easily, can't you? By being a... Did I say the dick word? Oh, I said it again. It slipped out.
That's what she said.
What just slipped out?
Yeah.
That's what she said.
And that didn't just slip out. But yeah, that whole thing about mending is harder, isn't it? Because you've got to then acknowledge it and all that sort of stuff. So that's the analogy that sort of sprung to mind. But anyway, Lee, I'll let you continue to build on your quote.
Yeah, can I just ask that you try and refrain from slipping out any more during this podcast, Jose? We want to keep ourselves on YouTube.
There's no slipping going on. The only slipping that's going on, maybe from you, maybe perhaps, because you keep talking about the slippage. There you go.
That'd be. Ryan's enjoying the slippage.
It's a funny word, isn't it?
I enjoy the slippage conversation.
I think if you, and this used to, back where we used to work, Jose, oh my God, we're going back 20 plus years now, or 20 years at least. Adding "age" to the end of words was a thing we did all the time, didn't we? So it's like breakage, coffeeage, lunchage, all the time. Made every word funny. Everything was funny.
I love that. It was
a bit of
language
on
itself.
the end.
Yeah, I love that.
And I like that, and I like your view on it. Like you said, that it's easier to break than it is to mend, especially to friendships. My view on it is always, and it's something to keep in mind, is it's so easy to see something someone's done and say, that's crap, that's rubbish, I'd have done it differently, why have you done it like that? Why are you trying to do that? What's the point in this? Oh, the people who are doing, my local council, the government, the shop I go into, my work, my club that I'm a part of, whatever it is, it's really easy to be like, that's rubbish, and throw out criticism, to break things, to tear them down, to say no. It's really easy to pick up that plate and throw it against the wall. But to make the plate and make it smooth and make it the right shape and design a pattern for it and paint it, that takes time, that takes effort. And actually, you might do a terrible job with it and someone will pick it up and throw it against the wall. But again, that act is far easier. Yeah. It's far easier to tear down and create than it is to contribute, to give something a go, to give something a try. And I just think it's really, I like it as something to keep in mind, because it is human instinct. We all do it. We've all done it. We'll all still do it. But I try and keep that sort of mentality in my head when you can slip into that mode and actually be like, what are you contributing by criticising? Could you actually, and if you do disagree with something, do you criticise, or do you give more constructive feedback, or do you offer to help? What can you do that's a better outcome than to go back to the analogy of just picking it up and throwing it against the wall? And I just think, as well, when you're on the flip side of it, it's so easy, when people are throwing criticism at you, you could have done this better, why didn't you do this, I don't like this is terrible, yes, this is great, but blah, 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 blah. It's so easy to become overwhelmed with all of that, but 10 people could do that to you in fact, one person could do that to you 10 times in less time than it takes you to build that thing. It's so easy. There's such little effort involved in it, but it's really easy to lose your momentum for doing the good work because of people putting very little effort in to throw the bad things at you.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think it just helps. It's one of those ways to cope with that when you kind of put a bit of perspective on it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I'm just trying to go back. Thank you, Wiku, for liking the live. Just keep that up. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Ask a question. You deserve to ask a question. By the way, Wiku, thank you on TikTok. But yeah, I agree, because
there. I like that.
Yes. The reason I like it is because it can apply to everything, can't it? Relationships. I want to try and apply something real to it. And I spoke to Ryan a couple of weeks ago, I think, about this, where I've done this. I've done it. There was a friend of mine who wanted to create a band when I was at school, and I sort of said, you never create a band, right? So that's like it's easier to break down, almost like break someone else's dream, right? Because you said, oh, you'll never do that, and you're putting your own limitations on them because they won't have a go, and you just shot them down. And I'm trying to think back, maybe because I didn't feel confident enough to do it, or never thought of it. I think it's probably where I've never felt confident enough to do anything like that when I was probably, I must have been 17, 18 back then. But I think this is really important, because if we bring it back to a real situation where we have actually done this to other people, I think it really puts in perspective to reflect back on it and go, oh, that's where I did that. And be mindful that when people suggest things and when people put things forward, that actually, what you said, Lee, we're quite excited by the idea. One, if we don't think it's going to work, what is the idea? What else could work? Or if it is, can we be honest in a way that doesn't, undermine their own confidence or undermine their own sense of, I put myself out there now, I want to have a go at this? Or can we support them in some way to develop that idea or whatever? Because it's easy, like you said, Lee, to go, oh, that's never going to work. I've heard it so much, and it's really, I think for me, it's horrible, because, one is you're probably putting your limits on someone else, but there is a thing about, actually, is this idea going to work? Have we got experience? And if we have, then how can we help them build something that is going to work in the something they want to do? So helping people build something rather than just tearing the whole thing down. And it might be they have to rethink the whole idea, but hey, that's a really good effort on there. But how do you build around that? Or what else could you think you could do around that? Because I think that's really powerful, because, it's easy, like you said, to break an idea, break someone's spirit to try and do something. And it's just a little seed in the ground, a little shoot of, I'm going to try something, and then you shoot it down and you trample all over it, and then they're not going to try again because of the things you said. And as I said, Lee, before, you said before, I think it was a book you said in one of your books, I think it was a book, it was a notebook, and it said, be mindful. Yeah. I was just trying to think, I think it was a New Year's resolution where you said,
it's a notepad that I got,
leave people in a better place than where you found them. I think that was the quote. I think I really loved that. And this actually, I think, could link to that, because it's about don't try and break it in the first place. Let's try and build things together in a way that we don't have to break things, and we don't have to mend things. Actually, we still reiterate things and build things together. And things might break or things might go wrong, but how do we navigate that and, you know, do these things together? I think you'll iterate that quite. I really love it. Anyway, I just thought I'd add that thought. Coming from experience, I think is a really important thing, because, knowing your journey or knowing where you've helped, and through my coaching, I've helped a lot of people build ideas or build things or look at things so they can then build a plan to do something different. Or if it hasn't worked, how do we build a plan? How do you build a plan to get around that, or to attack something different? And that's the key, I think. And it's why I love coaching so much, because it actually helps you with all this. Relationships, whatever, anything you're talking about, there's always a way through. And whatever the idea is, we need to encourage more ideas, if anything, or not break them. We need to say, oh yeah, that's great. What else can we do? What else? And bring more, and iterate, right? And Lee, you love it, innovation, right? Anyway, there you go. I love this. That's what I'm saying. It's me.
The magical answer is to something. If someone gives an idea, but you're not too sure on it, it's not no, it's what if. That's a great idea, but what if?
What if? Yeah, I love that.
That's why you always say that.
Keep it going.
That's why you always say that to me.
Do I always say that?
I bring ideas to you at work, and you're like, yeah, but what if? And I'm like, oh yeah, they're just shit ideas. Now I know.
But no, they're not shit ideas, Ryan. They're not shit.
No, I'm only joking. I don't think Lee's ever said that.
And also the thing with the ideas thing, I think it's important that there might be an idea someone throws out there, but we're not an expert in this idea. It might be something that we've not really thought about. How can we give an opinion if we've not got an experience in the idea that they're thinking about? That's another thing which people do a lot, and I've done it. I've given an opinion on something that actually I probably don't know that much about. But
really
what's my authority?
Before you've even had a chance to think about it.
Yeah, what's my authority on that? Have I got authority? No. Well, have I got a right to say a view on it? Unless that's what do you think? Well, I don't think I'm really I'm not expert enough to talk to you about that, because I've not really ever done that. So there's a lot of things that we got to think about before we respond. Anyway, I love that. Ron, what you said. Yeah, carry on. Sorry. I
don't think Lee's ever said. If anything, I usually get a high pitched. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. We can do that. That's what I usually get.
Love that. Oh, I love that. Oh, this is so good. I'll tell you what, just in the pause, guys, Wiku's just liked this live up to 1.6k or something crazy like that. Brilliant. Thank you, Wiku. Please share. Please continue to like the live. It's fantastic. Tim's going crazy right now, just to let you know.
Love it.
Thank you so
really
much.
Good. Again, Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation. Just put that into your Google machine. Our website, Joe's YouTube, Joe's TikTok, they will be the first things that come up. Go in, follow them all. It's all great stuff. Yeah, I just think for me, it is that thinking it through, and this isn't my initial thought when I saw it, but it is that dual purpose. One is, it's almost, defence isn't the right word, but if someone is criticising you, knock it down, I can almost see that being a response you give to someone where you kind of shut down the criticism, being like, well, it's easier to break plates than it is to make them. It's not, it's a way of shutting down that just overly negative response, but also for me, and what I didn't probably is to have that in mind as well. If that criticism trigger kicks in, you can see that doesn't mean you just go along and you happy slappy agree with everything, but actually can you what is the best way to put that message across? Does someone just need a bit of encouragement? Could you input different ideas to it? Can you give that feedback in the best way? What is that? Where is that person in their journey, and how can you help them? Which by no means am I or anyone perfect at, but it's just something, again, just to root in your head and think about, and how you respond. And how you deal with it when other, because it's great to say this, but there are a lot of people out there that will be critical. So remember it the other way around, and just balance out that, yes, they are throwing a lot of criticism at you, but that's easy, and you're doing the hard work, and keep going with what you're doing.
Yeah, love that. Ryan, anything from you? Because I know I've just sort of really spoke a lot.
For a change.
I wasn't quite sure of what you meant with the quote when you started, I guess, but I think having listened to the pair of you, I understand, and I think it's easy to. I think the premise is it's easy to build something. It's easy to build something, but it's even easier to tear something down, right? So, and sometimes it's not so easy to build something either. But I think kind of just speaks to me a bit more now on the just being overly critical. Kind of similar to the pair of you have kind of touched on, but it's so much easier to be difficult and challenging to somebody's ideas, especially when it feels like they're encroaching in what you would call your lane. I know I can be a bit guilty of that sometimes, that if I've got a project or something that I'm really looking after, and actually I had some feedback today on a similar vein actually. I'm quite protective over a piece of work that I do because I've done it for a few years, and it's something that I've always tried to do to a really high standard because it has quite big implications for the people that work with us. And I sent an email, maybe in July, that had a comment at the end of it that said something along the lines of, "Come on, guys, you've had a week. I need it now." Something along those lines. And when I wrote it, it was more of a G up of, "Get your arse in gear and get me what I need, please, so I can actually do what I need to do." But the way it was read by the person that read it, kind of suggested that they thought it wasn't very, the word they used was teamworky, that it could come across as quite, it could have come across as quite rude. And once I'd explained how I meant it, they were fine. But I think from that perspective, I think from their position, I think they was trying to think that I was trying to break the plate, so to speak, whereas I was just trying to make sure the plate didn't get broken. Sometimes it's easy to get caught in the moment and what you do. And do I think that feedback was justified for me? Probably not, but that's also because I'm biased and I want to make sure the outcome's right. So come what may, I'll tell you what I want to tell you. As long as you get me what I need, I don't really care. But from their perspective, perhaps I could have read that slightly better, and it could have come across as something wrong. So all good things to learn from, and all good things to take feedback for and try and improve for next time, really, which is all any of us can really do in any of these scenarios. I'm sure for the most part, people that maybe break more plates than they make are coming from a good place. It's just making sure that place is felt that they're doing the right things in the middle to not break as many.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, we can all be guilty of, I think you probably wrote it in your own sort of style, which is quite a direct style. And when people receive it, they don't sort of read into it what that is. But I think that we're all guilty of that. And especially when you get things done, you do need to sometimes be direct. But sometimes people read it a different way. And I think teamworky, what does actually teamworky mean? Teamworky could be a lot of different things for different people, but you're right.
Hey, look, I wasn't overly enamored with the feedback when I got it, but
fair enough.
The person is somebody that is a mentor, a mentee of theirs, and it's something that I should take on the chin if I need to take it on the chin.
Yeah, and I think there's value in it, isn't there? I think
that's the same with everyone, though, right? And it's probably a wider conversation. Yeah. We talk about the podcast about getting feedback and taking it in the right way, but there will be times as humans where somebody will give us feedback and we'll go, "Jog on, mate. I don't agree with that," and that's also perfectly acceptable as long as you disagree with the feedback in the right way.
Yeah.
If you're just instantly defensive and think that's wrong, I'm completely right, then that's not the right way to go. But if you take the time to reflect on it and think, "No, I've been burnt by not crossing this bridge too many times before, and it just saves so much aggravation that what I've done here I think is right," and you can justify feeling that way, and as long as it doesn't affect anybody else negatively, then I think you're fine as well.
Do you know what? And I think this is a really good thing for feedback. It's easy to break and hard to remember. Right? If you're trying to give feedback, if you have a relationship and you're trying to give feedback and it breaks, and it's not done in the right way, it's definitely breaking, isn't it? And then no one's going to listen to you, right? So I think you're definitely right. And I think if it isn't that you agree with it, then it's a conversation, right?
Yeah,
it's a conversation, because it might be that they've missed something. That's how that can happen. Or you've experienced, and it's not. And again, we're very human, because if we've been asked to do something or asked to critique something, and not everybody knows everything. That's the thing. And you might have some information they just didn't know. And do you know what? That's a fair point. I'll retract that. I've done that. I've had to audit people or whatever. And they said, "Oh, by the way, this is what I remember that. Oh, okay, that's fine. Let me just retract that, because actually, you were thinking about that." Because sometimes you don't see the whole picture, right? You don't see everything, because sometimes you just can't see everything. You just This is when I give feedback, as I go, oh, I noticed this, I noticed X. In fact, I was having to observe a team leader meeting. Oh, and I said, I noticed X, 2 people were late. All I said was I noticed it. So, the idea was to put it on the table. And what it was is that they had sent a message, oh, can you join as soon as you can? Because we're on calls, right? But I didn't know about that. But that's the beauty of good feedback, is that you put it on the table. You go, what's happened here? And then you talk about, it's not that they didn't know they needed to be in. It's just, they were good. I want to be in anyway. They're just going to join later. But if I'd have done the feedback in the wrong way, I know it's 2 people were late. That's a terrible, whatever. That's the terrible way to give feedback, right?
We've almost certainly had this conversation before.
100%.
I mean, almost certainly. But feedback is a two-way conversation.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. And
you're more than free as somebody getting feedback to challenge that feedback.
I agree. And if it's not, then that's not great at all, because
and have a conversation around why that feedback has happened.
This goes back
within your right.
Totally goes back to what Lee's saying. This quote for Churchill, right? Easy to just, like, say, reject whatever. Had the conversation. If you just reject it and be a bloody mind about it, then you've broken the relationship. You've broken it down. That's not going to help anybody. And it's harder to get all that back. Better to have a decent conversation and actually have a human-to-human conversation and try and work it out. And let's be honest, best of the world, we're not always, not every human's going to get on with every human being in the world, right? That's just not going to happen. But you can have a civil conversation, even if people don't get on with, then that's much better than not doing it correctly and having a conversation, right? So I love this. And I think it's tied into it. Anyway, sorry, Leo, I think I've almost monopolised this quote. I'm really excited about it. I just loved it. That was just so great.
So while we're talking, just so you know, it's there, Jose Prairie Dodgers on YouTube saying hi, guys. Keep up the simple conversations.
Oh, so lovely.
I thought you'd like that.
Cindy. Welcome, Cindy. We love you, Cindy. Thank you. Yeah.
And I think it's probably enough for a whole other conversation, but I do think there's a whole thing in the interpretation messaging thing around interpretation and perception. That's the other word I was looking for in conversations, both verbal and especially written, as to how people take things, because your intention, like that example you gave there, and your intention, how someone saw it, are 2 completely different things. And actually it's very easy to come across as negative because without realizing it. But actually, that wasn't your intention whatsoever, but that's how someone's seen it. But then that's, for us, people receiving information, if you read it and you're like, how dare they say rah, 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 step back a second and think, actually, is that what they meant, or is that just how I'm seeing it? And that's not to say everything doesn't always have that in there, but it's again, it's a two-way thing. One thing is being mindful of how things are interpreted, but the other is, just give people the benefit of the doubt. If you think someone's being short, maybe they're not. Maybe they're pressed for time. Maybe that's just their communication style. Maybe they think that's what you prefer. There could be a million things to that. I remember years ago, I'll give an example. Someone I used to work with, I think was in a recruitment team, and we had instant messenger system at the time. And there'd always be a pattern where I'd get a message from them that said, "Hey Lee," and I'd say hi back.
This
and
is
then
the worst.
they'd say, "How are you?" And I'd say, "I'm good, how are you?" And then they'd ask me what they want. But I'd have to go through those 3 steps every time. Which,
that does my head when people do that.
But I'll put out there with that there's loads of people that's not. And I was having a conversation one day, and I said, "Look, why do you do that? Why don't you just," I said, "I'd much rather you just go in and ask me what you want to ask me." And they actually said, "Oh, that's funny, because that's always what I used to do. But I got some feedback that I wasn't chatty enough with people and that I should do it. So I now do it because I was told to do it." So that's, one person giving their preference to that person. It's actually not their natural style that they've put it in, that then in an interaction with me has created. And I guess and that's not to say I'm right and they're wrong or the other way round. It's just, it's different for everyone. There is no one size fits all. But actually they were being someone they weren't because of that. And again, they were trying to improve. It was done with the heart in the right place, but it's just, there is no right answer, and that's the important thing to remember with it as well. Try different things, see what's, and I depending who I'm talking to, as I learn how people work, I will take different approaches, knowing what works and what doesn't work. There's some people who need everything explained out to them up front so they don't jump to conclusions. There's other people who just need a snapshot because you'll lose them if you give them too much information. There's some that's better in writing, there's some that's better verbally. And it's, again, I don't always get it right, and I'll get it wrong a lot of the time, but it's just learning from that and picking up and adapting the style and knowing everyone's different rather than trying to apply one size fits all. But that whole interpretation, perception thing, even back to the quote, because I put out a quote and I had a really crystal view in my head as to what that meant the second I read it. But I put it out to you guys, and like you said, Ryan, you weren't sure what I was going at with it at first. You, Joe, had a completely different interpretation. And again, it's all three of us in a different place on a quote that's like 7 words. And that whole perception interpretation wing is a fascinating subject as well, which we have done before, but as we do a lot of these topics, our perspective starts to change a bit as we go on with these things through our,
as we grow, I think,
through our recorded video development journals that we have here right now.
Yeah, it's the growing though, isn't it? I think as you change, you sort of have different ideas, you grow and have different views, and you evolve and improve. And I think that's where it goes. You go deeper into these things rather than just taking the face value. What does it actually mean to me from my perspective? I love that. And that's the beauty of this podcast. We've got our 3 of us that we totally different views on what we see, but I love it. That's the whole point of it, right?
Speaking
I'm going to help you out there.
Speaking of growth, Jose, has there been any more slippage?
No, all good.
No
slippage.
I always like when I get a little chuckle from Ryan because he always tries to hold it back at first and then it just takes over. Right, thank you guys. Thank you for the conversation on that. I've got lots more in here. There's a load of great quotes I've bookmarked in this book that won't always show up because of my blur background. Everyone likes what we're doing, head over to inspirationnation.org.uk. As I said a couple of times, just follow Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation, stick it in your Google machine. Follow particularly YouTube, lots of new shorts coming out on there and on TikTok as well. If you hit subscribe and to be notified, you'll be told when we're going live each and every week. You can get involved like the literal hundreds of people have done this week. We thank everyone supporting over on YouTube, on TikTok as well. It's been fantastic. That's about it, really. I think I'm going to count us down now and say 3, 2, 1, Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys later.
Catch you guys later, Inspiration Nation.
My God, you were slow there.
Later. I've missed Inspiration Nation. I've been playing around with the ending on my other videos. I keep missing